Howdy, and welcome back to Celebrating Vintage Model Kits. Today we're going to look at a bagged Airfix kit. Airfix was known for a period of time making these bag kits of some of their small aircraft, particularly the 72nd scale ones. I think they also made a few bag kits of some armor, maybe a few other kits as well, some vehicles, cars, trucks, etc. But they're mainly known for these 72nd scale aircraft bag kits. So we're going to take a look at one today. We've got a 1966 issue of a Roland C2, kit number 120, and as I mentioned before, in 172nd scale. LFG was the manufacturer of Roland aircraft. The C2 was a the C2 is a code for, or the C was code for a two-seat armed aircraft, which in this case was a reconnaissance, sometimes ground attack aircraft, but mainly used for reconnaissance. Roland, the LFG company, had been making aircraft under license from other companies, and in 1915 decided they were going to try to make their own aircraft for building. And this one here, the Roland C2, was one of their first successful designs. When it came out, it was one of the fastest aircraft available. There's very few other airplanes, single-seaters, two-seaters, whatever, that were faster than it. It innovated some streamlining. It was an early attempt at a monocoque fuselage. It used strips of warp or veneer strips that were wrapped around a wooden frame. So it did have some stringers in it, so it's not a true monocoque, but it was an early effort at it. So the first flight was in October 24th of 1915. It went into service in early 1916 and was around for about a year. They ended up producing about 400 of these aircraft. By the beginning of 1917, it was becoming very outclassed, and it was moved into training. And fortunately, as far as I could tell, there are no surviving Rolands in the world at this point. So it's kind of a lost aircraft. It was known for its speed, unique construction. It had excellent visibility, towards the upper hemisphere, because the pilot and observer were sitting on top of the fuselage, and the upper wing was, as you can see, parallel with the top of the fuselage. So the upper hemisphere had tremendous view. Looking down, though, was a bit challenging because you're looking through two wings. You had this round fuselage that was fairly rotund, so looking down was difficult. They did install some windows on the side to help the observer be able to see down, since it was supposed to be an observation aircraft. And they did try doing some cutouts inside the wings here for the pilot to be able to look down. But because poor visibility downwards, it had a higher than average accident rate in landings compared to other C aircraft. So initially, the first 50 production just had the parabellum machine gun in the rear. Then after the first 50, they added the synchronized Spandau in the nose for the pilot to be able to use. Because of its speed, it was sometimes used as an escort fighter for other C aircraft, but it wasn't, the most stable platform. It wasn't the most maneuverable, so it wasn't great as a fighter, even though it had some pretty good speed. So let's get into the kit and take a look at what we got here. This is what your typical bag kit would look like in the 60s from Airfix. You've got a folded over page with a pretty nice representation of the artwork. It's maybe not quite as crisply detailed as what you see on some of the boxes, but still nicely done. Was not able to locate the artist on this, but it's quite possibly a Roy Cross, an early Roy Cross, but not sure. Got the Airfix 72nd scale. Got 79 written right here. I think that's probably the price at the time. Probably 79 cents when it was being sold here in the U.S. And then, of course, you get your bag with your parts down below. On the back side, you've got some history of the aircraft itself. And printed in England. Pattern number 120, as mentioned before, is kit number 120. And so you had a hole here. So these would usually be hung on pegs. I remember as a kid seeing these standalone rounders. It was just I don't know, maybe about 5-6 pegs high with 4 or 5 pegs around, and the thing would spin around. You could see all the kits hanging off of it. So this particular kit has, as far as I can tell, has never been opened. So this will be the first time that we're opening it. I'm going to use an X-Acto blade here to pop open these staples. And kind of preserve the kit a little bit. And there we go. This makes for very interesting video watching. Eventually, these bag kits got turned into blister card packs. So instead of just this bag hanging, you had a piece of cardboard with similar printed images on them. But instead of just this bag hanging, there was this celluloid, I guess, plastic blister that would be glued onto it with having the parts in it exposed like that. And then you'd fold open that cardstock backing, and the instructions would be inside, kind of like the way these bagged ones are here. So I think, there's still some companies that are kind of producing something similar to that. Not really these bagged ones, but at least the celluloid ones. So we'll take a look here at our instructions. And here we go. So you open it up, and everything's contained in that header. So you've got, again, mentioned for using Airfix paints and Airfix polystyrene cement. And interior fuselage assembly, minimal stuff. You do have a little bit of a detail for the engine, and just a little stub for a seat here, and a standing pilot. You do get the little windows inside. And then we've got assembling the wings. One of the other things that was innovative with the Roland is that it didn't have a bunch of interplane struts. It just had these single larger kind of eye struts in between the wings, so that helped with the streamlining and getting the speed. This little part here is a rollover piece. Since these guys were sitting right up on top, there was worry that the plane flipped over, which quite often did in the rough landings that it experienced. So this little rollover bar would help from crushing the pilot's head. The observer didn't have anything, so yeah, observers were replaceable, I guess. And then on the back here, we've got your final undercarriage assembly. And then we've got the painting guide. And this is a fairly simple paint guide on here, showing it being an all-over pale blue. And we'll touch on that. So decals next. So fairly simple decals. You got the name that would probably go on a stand if there's a stand in there, I think. Your Maltese crosses. And then this is a mouth and eyes to go on the front. So you see here the name Wahlfisch was a nickname for the C3. Wahlfisch is German for whale. From what I read, it wasn't a derogatory name for it. It was just, it had the shape of a whale, even though it was a pretty fast ship, so it really wasn't a derogatory term for it. But this particular aircraft here, these markings, actually represent an aircraft flown by a pilot by the name of Edward von Schleich, sometimes known as the Black Knight, and also known sometimes as Crazy Eyes. Apparently, he had kind of a strange look about him sometimes. And this is when he was flying with Feldflieger Arbeitung 2B in August of 1916. So he, the Edward von Schleich, in 14 months of flying in combat, he achieved 35 victories. He became the leader of Jägergeschwader number 4. He was a Bavarian born in 1888. Joined the Bavarian Army in 1908, and he was with the 11th Bavarian Infantry Regiment. When World War I started, he ended up getting wounded right at the beginning of August 1914. He got a shoulder wound. And then after recovering from that in 1915, he transferred to the Air Service, and he passed tests for pilot and observer, so he was both pilot and observer. And that's when he ended up being assigned to the FFA 2B. And on one of the observation runs, he ended up being wounded in the shoulder. The observer patched him up, and they continued on the mission to do the reconnaissance on what they were trying to get information on. He ended up being awarded the Iron Cross First Class. Later on, after he recovered from that, he became the commander of Schutzstaffel 28. When he was with them as the commander, they were short a lot of aircraft, and at one point a French Newport landed on their field. He ended up painting the French roundels out, put crosses on it, and flew that aircraft since they were so short on aircraft. December of 1917, he ended up being awarded the Pour le Mérite, commonly known as the Blue Max. And during this time period as well, too, when he was flying single-seater fighters with one of the earlier squadrons, one of his buddies, his really close friend, got killed, and as a kind of memorial to him, he painted his fighter in all black, and that's where he got the nickname of the Black Knight. And from that point on, his aircraft were all black, quite in contrast to this all light blue whale-looking plane. So after the war, he stayed involved in aviation. He helped organize the Hitler Youth Aviation Program after Herr Adolf got into power. Ended up actually full-fledged joining the Luftwaffe and the SS at the same time. Pre-war, he ended up commanding JG-26. He commanded a dive bomber squadron as well pre-war. And somewhere around 1940-41, he was given command of all Luftwaffe aircraft in Denmark. He didn't last in that position very long due to some ill health. He ended up retiring, and ultimately he died in 1947. So I was able to locate some photographs of the actual aircraft that this model kit is based off of. So I'm going to show you some of those right now. So let's take a look at the kit now. Dump out our parts. And we do have another insert here where you could send in for the Airfix magazine. Information on here. You can also send in complaints if you're missing or got broken parts on here. You can send it in. Then you've got a little checklist. Have you got them all yet? All the different kits that were available in 1966. So you go there. So we got a few trees and a number of parts, quite a number of parts have come off. That was one of the downsides of these bag kits, is that they weren't real conducive for holding on to parts on the trees. Quite frequently there's a lot of broken parts in them from mishandling. This one actually seems not too bad. I don't see anything standing out as broken, but a lot of parts are falling off the trees. So let's take a look at, we'll start with fuselage. This is about the smallest kit that we've looked at so far, being a 72nd scale World War I aircraft. The fit seems to be okay. You get raised surface detailing for some of these fuselage bulkheads, representing the rudder. All raised on here. There's quite a number of sinkholes here. Here, I think that's a purposeful. Those two might be purposely done. That does not appear to be a purpose one because that's right behind where a pin is. And fit's not too bad. Some good glue in there. You get it a little tight. Does seem to be a little bit off there. And some representation of some of the cowl venting in there. So that's your fuselage. Here's your wings. And they are trying to represent some fabric covering on here. I don't know how well you can see that in this video, but there is some representation of fabric on there. Fortunately, you do have some ejector pin marks on here too, on the top of the bottom wing. And it looks like on the bottom of the top wing. So I guess they're trying to keep it in the middle there, maybe. You wouldn't see it, notice it as much. Oh wait, so I'm sorry, I got these reversed. That's your top wing, that's your bottom wing. Wait, no, wait. Well, one of them. Hey, here we go, there we go. Top and, there we go, top. So that's your top wing, that's your bottom wing. And you've got the ejector pin mark on the bottom of the top and the top of the bottom. So actually I did have that right before. So you got that, you got representation of the ailerons with engraved lines. And you can see pretty prominent ribs. So overall not too bad. Here's your tail. This is done similar to the fuselage with these raised lines, although you do have an inscribed line for the rudder, or I'm sorry, for the elevator. This is the horizontal stabilizer. There's your other one, similar again as well. Propeller, quite a bit of flash on that propeller. And there's your engine part. That looks a little rough. Some nice detail, but a little bit rough. You got your wheels. Quite a bit of flash on there. I do see, I think this is that pylon for over the pilot, and that does look like it's got a broken leg. Yep, there it is right there. There you get your wheel struts. There you get your flexible spandow, tail strut, pilot seat. Looks like a little radiator rib. Some sort of Venturi maybe, or generator, because I think these aircraft actually were sometimes equipped with radios. Interplane strut. Your fixed Vickers. Fairly simple. And here's your clear parts. As you see with a lot of these kind of square small window parts, there's this weird kind of spot in the center, the way these things are molded. So you get this weird distortion effect going on with these. Pretty thick, just there for representation more than anything else. And then you've got one of the basic Airfix stands, generic Airfix stand that you then put that decal with. And finally, we got pilot figures. So we've got your observer figure. You can see him. So a little different than the typical Airfix pilot figures that you get with most kits. They actually have made something a little different. You have this observer guy. Actually pretty well done. And here is the pilot, looking out, pointing at something. Not a bad figure. Even has kind of scarf floating in the wind there. Kind of nice. So that's it. Not much. It's a 72nd scale World War I kit. You're not going to get a whole lot out of it. So So as I mentioned, this was first issued in 1966. This being the bagged kit is the first one. It was also issued in '66 as part of a pair. They were doing these what they call dogfight series, where they'd match up some aircraft together and sell them in box sets. So you get two of these kits together. This Roland was paired up with, of all things, an RE-8. Would have thought maybe, a fighter of some sort, but an RE-8 or Harry Tate is what they paired it up with. In the 60s also, MPC was importer, reboxer of Airfix in the United States, so there was an MPC version of this. 73 is when they issued, Airfix reissued this in that blister pack I mentioned before. And then a couple more times it was issued as a boxed kit in 84 and 87. I think the 87 one, they changed the box art finally on it. And then the final issue was in 1996 under the Heller name. This is when Heller owned Airfix, so they were reboxing a number of the older Airfix kits as Heller kits. And that was the last time this was issued. So surprising for such a neat airplane. Not many issues of this kit, so it's a little bit of a harder kit to find out there, but not impossible. So hope you enjoyed watching this. If you've built this kit, definitely let us know about your experiences in the comment section. If you've got one in your collection that you got built, definitely take some pictures of it, send it in for a viewer build. If you've got some other Airfix World War I jobs from this era, take some picture of that, send it in. It doesn't have to be specifically this Roland kit, but if you do, that would be the best. But other Airfix World War I planes would be fun to see as well. So have yourselves a great rest of your day, and thanks for watching.